Hey guys, here is the follow-up video to the two proportion Z interval notes, and this is actually the last problem on the same note packet. It's just the last page here, and this is using technology to do it the easy way, everything we just did. But again, remember that you have to understand what you're feeding the calculator, what the calculator's asking for, and the results that the calculator gives you, both in terms of showing that on the exam and explaining your conclusions, or the calculator's conclusions in this case. So this is a new problem here. We have a typical situation in which you'd use a two proportion Z interval, or a two proportion test in which you have a drug and a placebo, and you're trying to determine if there's a significant difference, or if the drug is actually having an effect that is significantly different than the placebo. So we have Chantix. We take a sample of 129 people that took Chantix, and 19 experienced insomnia, and 805 people were given a placebo, in which 13 experienced insomnia. Again, looking at those numbers, you might assume immediately that Chantix, there's evidence that Chantix is having an effect on insomnia. It's a much smaller sample size, and the number of successes was greater. But we do need to perform some statistics on this to determine if it is significant or not. And in this case, we're going to establish a confidence interval at the level of 95% confident. First thing, state your parameters. Parameter 1 is the true proportion of all people receiving Chantix who experience insomnia, and parameter 2 is the true proportion of all people receiving a placebo who experience insomnia. And we're looking for the difference between those two. And if the true proportion of people who receive Chantix is greater, then we subtract that proportion. We take that and subtract the second proportion, which is people who receive a placebo and experience insomnia, then it should be positive. It should be greater in all cases, right? But we're going to look at 95% of the cases, which is a pretty solid confidence level. And we're going to do it with the calculator. So tests, that's over 2 after you press the stat button. And you have a lot of options here, all of which you're going to know how to use by the end of this course. The one we're concerned about this time is a two proportion Z interval. That's all the way down to B, so past 0 to B. Go in there. Okay, your x sub 1, or x1, is your number of successes in the first sample. That's the Chantix sample, recall. 19 people experienced insomnia, and N1 is your sample size for the first sample, 129. X2 is your second sample successes, people who took the placebo. You have 13 who experienced insomnia out of 805 in that sample. C level is the confidence level, in this case 0.95, and you're ready to go. Scroll down to calculate, boom, and you'll get the display that's shown in the second picture here. And at the very top, be careful not to press enter twice and go right past that screen. That's pretty easy to do. And if that happens, you got to do it again. Go back into stat, test, two proportion Z interval. Your numbers should still be there. Just calculate again. At the very top is the actual interval. That's pretty easy, isn't it? So that is the interval in which we believe the true difference in those two populations lies. And you'll notice that they're all positive. 0 is not contained in that interval. It also gives you your P1 hat and your P2 hat in decimal form, your two sample sizes, which you had to enter anyway. So that's not super valuable there. The value really is in that interval. And the interpretation of that is as follows. We're 95% confident that the difference in the true proportions of people experiencing insomnia when we subtract the Chantix population from the placebo population is between 6.94% and 19.29%. And the interpretation of that interpretation is that we are confident that there is more of an effect or a greater proportion of people who take Chantix experience insomnia than those who took the placebo, given that that interval is completely above zero, and zero is not contained in that interval. Hope that helps. Next video will be 2 proportion Z tests. Stay tuned.